always trust.
We ask the questions.
What is needed in the world?
He is one of the world's longest-serving leaders and one of the most controversial. President Omar al-Bashir has ruled Sudan for a quarter of a century. He was also the first serving world leader to be indicted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes. President Bashir has refused to travel to The Hague, where the court wants him to stand trial on 3 counts of genocide during the war in the western region of Darfur. Sudan faces a presidential election next year. Bashir said earlier this year he wouldn't stand again. Now the ruling party has again proposed him as their candidate. On Talk to Al Jazeera, we speak to one of the president's closest allies, Foreign Minister Ali Karti, to find out whether Bashir really will stand.
What do you think are the chances of Omar Bashir being the leader of your country next year?
You are asking me about my personal...
Your personal view. How likely is it that he will be running the Republic of Sudan in a year's time?
My own understanding is that he will refuse. My own understanding is that there are so many views that will request him to carry on. Not because of the fact that there is nobody else to do it, but because of the fact that he was the only person who was able to bring all this together. This momentum of national dialogue needs time, and it needs commitment, and it needs somebody who can be trusted throughout the country. I would say he is the only person trusted. I hope you will come there, you will talk to him, you will find somebody who is different from what is portrayed here in the West.
But I assume you can't force him to run. He might be a little tired after 25 years at the head of the country.
25 years, yes, had been a marvelous work had been done there. So many things had been achieved, and although there are so many challenges and difficulties, but anyhow, it is the Sudanese people who decide. It is a decision of the political party, or whether he is a president or not. You may have followed the 2010 elections when he was elected as a president by more than 60% of the whole population of the country.
Well, you say that, to be fair,
yes.
Some have criticised that election and say there were irregularities, there was vote ringing, there was people who were intimidated.
But if you have Carter Center, I don't know if ever you have
Jimmy Carter's
went through the reports, you will see whether these allegations were right or wrong. It is, always now it have been, unfortunately, for some years, that the opposition, the political opposition, whether in Sudan or even abroad, wherever it is, they just claim that no, the elections were not fair and free. We have some critical points here and there. There are some violations here and there, but still, if you have observers like Carter Center, if you have observers like African Union, Arab League, even European Union were there. They did not report that the elections were not fair and free. You may find some problems here and there, but they do not at all make this effort, very big effort, something illegal or totally inaccurate.
We've seen the Arab Spring across the Arab world. Could there be a Sudan Spring at the time of this election? There's the Garifna movement. There are some, or many young people who are not part of the established political parties.
If you deem such movements as something considerable in the country...
Well, I'm asking you whether you assess them as a considerable threat to your political dominance.
You do not know the setup of the country. If you have 10 or 20 or 50 or even 200s who have a website and big voices...
That's it, is it?
Yeah.
President Bashir's Sudan remains a place of political unrest and violence. Freed from British and Egyptian rule in 1956, the country experienced a long-running conflict between the predominantly Arab north and the Christian south. This eventually led to a partition of the country when South Sudan seceded in 2011. Alongside this, the bloody war in Darfur in the western part of the country. Since 2003, more than 2.5 million people displaced, more than 400,000 dead. It's regarded by many as one of the world's worst humanitarian disasters. Meanwhile, the tension with the south is still festering, bombing raids along the border and tensions surrounding the disputed city of Abyei. Add to this economic uncertainties which spilled into the streets in September last year when angry demonstrators were confronting the government after its decision to cut fuel subsidies, more than 20 people killed here. We ask Foreign Minister Karti how he views the huge problems facing his nation and whether the current regime is to blame.
Tell me about the state of your country right now, after 25 years of President Bashir in charge, because it's in a pretty bad state, isn't it? You've got conflicts all over the country and your economy is in tatters.
Not at all. Not at all.
Tell me first, we'll go through the conflicts in a moment. Tell me about the state of the economy. Some Sudanese I've been speaking to in the last couple of days estimate, there's no clear figure, inflation's running at 40 or 50%.
Yes, we have difficulties, but that was due to our commitment in the international arena. We have committed ourselves to decide, to accept whatever may the Southern Sudanese people do. If they decide to secede from Sudan, then this is their right. And our commitment and the fulfillment of our promises and commitment is the reason behind these difficulties we are living in now. And it could have been easy for Sudan to say, no, we will not accept the result of the referendum, because we know that if the referendum is there, if the results are there, and if the South Sudan seceded, that means 75% of our revenues from oil will go to South Sudan. So we were not naive. We decided it. We knew that this could be the result, and we know that it is better even than going on fighting with South Sudan.
Were chances lost in the years when you did have all this oil revenue? Did you spend that money wisely, or should you have invested it better?
Yes. If you go to Sudan, you will find what happened after oil revenues. For only 7 years, we had these revenues. And if you go through the infrastructure, asphalt roads, refurbishing of railway roads, and implementing a lot of sugar factories and cement factories, everywhere you go, you find something different. If you are in Khartoum before 1999 and you visit Khartoum now, you will find a lot of difference.
But that's the criticism some make. They say fancy buildings in Khartoum and not enough help for the agricultural sector.
No, I said not only in Khartoum. If you go in electric schemes, whether in the north, whether in the west, whether in the east, you will find a lot of difference. So many parts of the Sudan, before oil, they didn't have even thought of electricity may be there. It is there now. They will not think of any asphalt road to get to their region. They are there now. And a lot of infrastructure was really implemented out of the revenues of oil in the limited only 7 years that had been also. And during these 7 years, the revenues were not the same. So the revenues went up slowly, and then they went down after the secession of South Sudan. So during this time, you will find a difference. So those who were there before 1999 will see a huge difference after these 7 years.
Now you don't have that oil revenue. How do you make your economy sustainable?
We have our internal revenues. We have our taxes. We have our our own policies, internal policies. We are still exporting some commodities, and we are still producing our food from within the country. We are still also benefiting from the dams. They were built during the time you were asking me, and the electricity generated from those dams and others, and we are benefiting also from minerals that are now also taking place in our economy, and all of this constitutes the revenue the country is run by.
You already have had public discontent, though, particularly in September 2013 when there were those protests.
It wasn't public. It wasn't public.
Who was
those
it?
Perpetrators who were designed to come in some towns, in 2 or 3 towns, to burn over everything, is not a political movement. I told so many reporters that was not a political movement. That was something like trying to burn a whole country, and it was duly stopped because we cannot accept something like that. If you want to demonstrate, if you want to peacefully express yourself, then it is open for them. And you have seen when the time came, when people were given this matter, after the dialogue began, they rallied everywhere. They have done whatever they want to do. They made their big even movement in the streets. No one touched them. But just to run down and burn everything, think of just the road near this building. If 10 or 20 or maybe 50 people descended from a bus and having some containers of gas oil or benzene, and pouring that and burning fire, what would happen? I think all of them will be shut down, because nobody will accept that. If you want to express yourself politically, there are political ways of expressing yourself, but to burn, this will not be accepted.
But Mr. Minister, the UN's independent expert of the Human Rights Council said there was human rights abuses and has called for an independent judicial inquiry, which hasn't taken place so far.
There is an inquiry that is held by the Ministry of Justice, and it still is taking place, because so many need to be inquired and again re-inquired, because of the witnesses are not in one place, and because of the fact that some of the witnesses, some of the incidents happened without finding any witness to tell us what happened there. We just find a place burned out. So it takes time to verify who did this and why somebody did this. So it takes place, and it takes time, and the investigation is underway.
But the report from the independent expert on Sudan is pretty damning. It also condemns your National Security Act of 2010, says it's draconian the way that you can detain suspects for 4.5 months.
Are we here to discuss what's happening in the Human Rights Council? I don't think. If the Human Rights Council, if we have time, we can go over that for 2 or 3 days. But such allegations, I think they were there because of some reporters within the Human Rights Council from the West here. They want to damn Sudan and blame Sudan for that.
Well, that's why I'm asking you these things, to get your comments on them, because these are things that are tarnishing your country's reputation.
Yeah, my comments is that there is still that conspiracy that Sudan should be kept sidelined. So political pressures, problems like this, and we are suffering from all that since it had been in 1999, and unfortunately we are going through this. We are doing our best in clearing this matter. We are doing our best in bringing right reports to the Human Rights Council, and we have been able also to combat those reports. So if you go through the decision, the last decision that had been taken over Sudan, you will not find these things.
Let me ask you about some of the other allegations about human rights that have been made about your country, and it takes us to some of the other conflicts taking place within your country, in South Kordofan, in Blue Nile and in Darfur, particularly South Kordofan and Blue Nile. Some say that's become the new South Sudan,
not
and
at
that
all.
you have been bombing
Not at
people
all.
there.
I invite you to go there to see how wide is the area that is affected by this conflict. It's a very limited area on part of the borders, and it is not like what is portrayed to you here in the West.
Well, I would
So
like to take you up on that invitation, because
Yes.
independent observers say they find it very difficult to get access. So if you're going to take me there.
I invite you.
But that specific allegation that you have been carrying out repeated bombings of people there, including civilians.
This is not right. These are NGOs who were banned to go there, and this is the reason why they are generating all this kind of wrong reports against Sudan. And we will keep telling the truth. We will keep saying what is going on there. And we have the African Union there in Sudan, and the reports of the African Union and the reports of even the UNIMIT were not the same when the special envoy that was sent by the Secretary General came to the Security Council before 2 weeks from now, maybe 10 days. The reports which was delivered by him were different from the written reports that came from some elements there in the mission or all over Sudan from the NGOs.
Well, just tell me, why do you ban those NGOs and aid agencies for most of the year? I know the ban's now been lifted. Even the International Committee of the Red Cross wasn't allowed to carry out
the Red Cross was not banned. No. This is
they have their activities suspended.
No, this is totally different.
Okay.
This is a difference on the agreement upon which the Red Cross is working. This has nothing to do with what the Red Cross is doing in Sudan. This is totally different. Our problem is not even with the United Nations organizations. Our problem is the NGOs. The NGOs were there in Darfur. They spoiled the situation in Darfur. They go everywhere. They report killing. They report raping. And if even the UNIMIT, when it went into some places where such allegations were reported, they found nothing. They even found nothing. So they were there just as perpetrators. They are not there to help anybody. Some of them were reported for some years that they did not deliver anything. And some of them were only agents. Some of them were only reporters. I would say infiltration happened everywhere. So it is, the duty of the government of Sudan to ban all this and to stop all this kind of interference into our own affairs.
How would you describe the situation now in Darfur? You had a Doha peace deal, but it never fully took hold. What's it like there now?
Yeah, it never fully, I would say, not like what you are saying now, but still we have some remnants of bandits here and there who did not welcome the Doha agreement, and they did not sign it. And we are doing our best. The mediators are working on that. The African Union is also working. And you have seen the agreement that was signed in Addis Ababa before some days. And to me, it could be the future that Darfur will witness stability because of this agreement. And still in Darfur, we have a tribal life. You will find some tribes who are not happy that some tribes are infringing their areas or utilizing their pasturing or water or whatever. So you will find this. And this was there in Darfur since the British were there. But nobody is giving any heed to what we are saying. When the Secretary General went out to say that the Darfur problem was mainly a climate problem, he was hugely attacked.
But of course, the actions of your government in Darfur in the past are why your president is still facing charges from the International Criminal Court. When you look at the activities of that court, and you look now at the charges which seem to be stalling against President Kenyatta of Kenya, what's your reaction?
My reaction is that, these are false reports. They were made by the rebels themselves. And the ICC itself, when reports came here to the Security Council, first reports, they said they were interrogated. From where did you get those stories? And first they refused, and then they came to say, from some camps. Where are these camps? They said the camps are outside Sudan. So they have witnesses from outside Sudan. They do not name witnesses. They do not tell which stories have been told to them, but they just went. High-level officials went from here, from America, to Sudan those days. When they came back, they did not name what happened in Darfur as a crime against humanity.
Can I move now to what's going on in what used to be part of your country and is now an independent country for the last 3 years? When you look at the violence in South Sudan in the last year, what is your reaction?
To me, this is so natural, because we know what had been uniting South Sudanese leaders and people is merely the confrontation with Sudan government. And we know what is happening there in South Sudan, that life is totally tribal. And the political transformation did not take place at all. This was our advice to them and to those who were pushing for South Sudan to take its own independence. And we told them time did not come, and South Sudan was not ready for that.
So who is to blame? There seems to be in some ways a battle between two men that became a tribal ethnic battle.
It's not a battle between two men. It's a battle between reality, which Sudan knows very well and knew through the history, and this kind of false imagination that some people are building a new nation and a new country. And we hope the best for South Sudan and South Sudanese people. But our advice was not accepted, because there are some who kept pushing South Sudanese leaders to go to that end. We did not at all benefit from that. Instead, South Sudan took its responsibility to be the first to support South Sudanese people. We have sent a lot of humanitarian assistance to them. More than 50,000 tons of sorghum were pledged from Sudan. Most of it now was in South Sudan already. Our humanitarian support went into the health arena, and we opened our doors for those who fled the war in South Sudan. Now we are hosting more than 100,000 of South Sudanese who fled the war back to Sudan.
As fighting continues in South Sudan, do you fear there could be a fresh war between Sudan and South Sudan because of Abyei? You still have not resolved this very, very thorny issue.
I assure you, this will not happen at all, because we have decided not to go back to war at all. We will not fight. If we left all the South, we will not fight for a limited area. I tell you, we have agreed on transitional government and transitional assembly, and also transitional security.
You say you can see the path ahead. Is that shown to you by that unofficial referendum which showed that people in Abyei wanted to go to South Sudan?
Not at all. This is not a referendum, and we cannot rely on the result, because we do not at all deem it a referendum. I can see the future in the coexistence that has been there for decades before. More than 9 decades people were living together, were enjoying their life together. Sometimes they have their confrontations, like what happens everywhere between some tribes, but they have their own ways and means of settling problems and resolving conflicts, and even there is a kind of intermarriage between the tribes there in the area, between the Arabs who were a bit to the north, and between Southerners who were a bit to the south. So people were mingling like this. Some leaders even of those tribes now are a produce of this intermarriage. So the future I can see is in the coexistence, not in partitioning, not in keeping Abyei even to the north, not keeping it to the south. The coexistence will also help both countries how to enhance it, how to handle it.
Thank you. Foreign Minister Ali Karti, thank you for talking to Al
Thank you
Jazeera.
so much.